They said it was a routine stop. That's what the report called it. That's what the department spokesperson said with a straight face. That's what the headlines repeated like a lullaby meant to put the public back to sleep. But routine is a word people use when they don't want to admit what they've done. Because the truth is, that stop didn't just pull a woman over. It pulled a whole city into a courtroom. It pulled a marriage apart at the seams. It pulled a police officer's reputation into the light, where it couldn't survive. And it asked one question so sharp, it still makes people argue years later. If you're innocent, but the system needs you to be guilty, how do you prove a negative when everyone already decided the story? Her name was Maya Ellison, 32 years old, middle school counselor, the kind of person who carried spare granola bars in her purse because she hated the idea of someone being hungry. The night it happened, she wasn't running from anything. She was driving home from her sister's place with a casserole dish on the passenger seat and a voicemail from her husband playing on loop in her head. Don't forget, tomorrow's the meeting with the bank. We can do this. I love you. They were trying to buy a house. That's important. Because when you're trying to build something real, you start moving differently. You start believing you're safe enough to plan. Maya had the windows cracked, the radio low, one hand resting on the steering wheel like she had nowhere urgent to be. Then the lights hit her mirror. Red, blue, flashing like a warning from God. She blinked, confused, checked her speed. She wasn't speeding. Her taillights were fine. Her registration was current. She eased onto the shoulder anyway, because you do what you're supposed to do. The patrol car rolled up behind her like a shadow with an engine, and when the officer stepped out, the night seemed to get colder. His name was Officer Grant Harlow, tall, clean uniform, controlled walk, the kind of calm that doesn't comfort. It measures you. Maya's fingers tightened on the wheel as he approached. She'd been taught the same lessons most people learn the hard way. Keep your hands visible, be polite, don't make sudden movements. She lowered her window halfway. "Yes, officer?" she asked softly, already reaching for calm. He didn't answer right away. He stared at her like he was looking through her, not at her. Then he said, "Step out of the vehicle." No greeting, no explanation, just an order. Maya's throat went dry. "Is something wrong?" she asked. His jaw clenched. "Step out of the vehicle." Maya's heart began doing that thing, where it doesn't race like fear, it pounds like warning. She did what she was told. Slowly, carefully, she unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out into the shoulder's harsh light. The air smelled like asphalt and exhaust. Harlow scanned her face again, eyes moving fast, like he was matching her to something in his mind. Then he said it. "Where's the package?" Maya froze. "What?" He stepped closer. "Don't play games with me. Where's the package?" Maya looked around like the world might suddenly make sense if she stared hard enough. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. Harlow's voice dropped. "We've been looking for you." Maya's breath caught. "Me? I'm a school counselor." Harlow's stare didn't soften. "Hands behind your back." Everything inside Maya screamed, "This is wrong." But wrong doesn't stop handcuffs. Wrong doesn't stop the cold bite of metal on skin. Wrong doesn't stop your casserole dish from tipping over in the car and spilling onto the seat like a sad, ordinary thing that doesn't belong in a nightmare. As he cuffed her, Maya heard another voice. His radio. A dispatch tone. A clipped message that sounded like it had urgency. "Suspect vehicle located. Female driver. Proceed with caution." Maya tried to speak, but the words tangled. "I didn't do anything," she said. "Please, I didn't do anything." Officer Harlow looked at her like he'd heard it 1,000 times, and then, with the calm of someone who believed he was the hero, he said, "Everyone says that." A second patrol car arrived, then a third. Neighbors began peeking through blinds, phones lifted, whispers traveled. Maya's cheeks burned as she stood there in cuffs on the side of a road she drove every day. Harlow opened her trunk. He rummaged. Then he turned back with something in his gloved hand, a small plastic bag. Maya's stomach dropped so hard she thought she'd throw up, because she had never seen that bag in her life. Harlow held it up like a trophy. "Found it," he said. Maya stared at it, shaking. "That's not mine." He leaned closer, voice low. "It's in your trunk," he said. "So it's yours." And that's when Maya understood something terrifying. Truth wasn't the point anymore. Ownership wasn't the point. The point was that the story had already started, and she was already cast as the villain. At the station, they processed her fast. Fingerprint, photograph, property inventory. Like the system had done this so many times, it could do it in its sleep. Maya asked for a phone call. The officer at the desk didn't look up. Later, she asked again. "I need to call my husband." The officer sighed like she was a child asking for candy. Later. Hours passed. Maya sat on a hard bench under fluorescent lights that made everyone look guilty. She kept replaying the stop, the order to step out, the question about the package, the way Harlow's eyes had looked, relieved, when he found that bag. Finally, a public defender arrived, a tired man with a briefcase that looked older than Maya's career. He introduced himself, Calvin Rowe. He sat across from her and began flipping through papers. "You're being charged with possession with intent," he said. Maya stared. "But I didn't." He raised a hand gently. "I know. Everyone says they didn't. I'm not saying you did. I'm saying what they're charging." Maya's voice broke. "This is a mistake." Calvin hesitated, then said something that should have been illegal to say out loud. "Mistakes don't usually come with 3 patrol cars." Maya swallowed hard. "What do I do?" Calvin looked at her a moment, then leaned in like he didn't want the walls to hear. "Tell me everything," he said, "and don't leave out anything you think is small. Small things are usually where the truth is hiding." Maya told him about the casserole, the voicemail, the bank meeting, her job, her sister, the fact she'd never even had a speeding ticket. Calvin listened, but his face didn't change. Then he asked, "Did they search your car with your consent?" Maya frowned. "He opened my trunk. I didn't say he could." Calvin's eyes narrowed. "Did he tell you why he pulled you over?" "No." Calvin's pen stopped. Maya leaned forward. "What does that mean?" Calvin exhaled slowly, like someone stepping toward a cliff. "It means this might not be a mistake," he said. "It means we're about to find out what kind of case this really is." The next day, Maya finally got her phone call. Her husband, Ethan, answered on the first ring. "Maya?" His voice was cracked, panicked. "Where are you? You didn't come home. She tried to hold herself together. "They arrested me," she whispered. Silence swallowed the line. Ethan's breathing turned jagged. "For what?" he finally said. Maya's voice dropped even lower. "Drugs?" she said. "They said they found—" "Ethan, I swear to you, I didn't—" Ethan cut in instantly, voice fierce with belief. "I know," he said. "I know you didn't." Maya closed her eyes. But belief doesn't change bail. It doesn't change headlines either. Because the moment Maya's mugshot entered the world, the story became public property. School counselor arrested with narcotics. Community mentor caught in trafficking bust. People loved it. A fall from grace story, a clean headline, a neat little moral. And the public has a hunger for neat morals. Maya was suspended from her job before she even got her first hearing. Parents started whispering. Some demanded she be fired. Some apologized and said they just had to protect their kids. Ethan's phone filled with messages, some supportive, some cruel, some asking questions that weren't questions at all. "Are you sure you know who you married?" The bank meeting was canceled. The house dream gone. All because a man with a badge held up a bag and said, "Found it." At the first court appearance, Maya walked in wearing the same clothes she'd been arrested in. Her wrists still bore faint marks. The courtroom smelled like old wood and quiet judgment. The judge looked down like she had seen 1,000 Mayas. The prosecutor stood, polished and confident. Her name was Dana Klein. Sharp eyes, sharper words. The kind of prosecutor who didn't smile because she didn't need to. She addressed the court. "Your Honor, this defendant was found with a controlled substance in her vehicle, packaged in a manner consistent with distribution. Officer Harlow conducted the stop based on information from an active investigation." Maya turned her head slightly and saw Officer Harlow sitting in the front row. Perfect posture, a face that said, "I did my duty." Maya's stomach twisted. The judge set bail at a number that felt like a punishment disguised as procedure. Ethan couldn't afford it. Maya was remanded. When the gavel struck, it sounded like a door locking. In the holding cell afterward, Maya pressed her back against the wall and tried not to cry because crying felt like surrender. Calvin Rowe sat across from her again, this time with a different expression. He wasn't tired. He was focused. "I asked for the body camera footage," he said. Maya's eyes lifted. "And?" Calvin's jaw tightened. "They say his camera malfunctioned," he said. Maya blinked. "Malfunctioned?" Calvin nodded. "And the dash cam?" she asked, hope rising. Calvin's expression didn't soften. "They say the dash cam file corrupted." Maya stared at him. 2 cameras, 2 failures, on the exact same night, on the exact same stop. Maya's voice trembled. "So there's no video?" Calvin leaned forward. "Not from them," he said. "But that doesn't mean there's no video." That line was the first oxygen Maya had breathed in days. Calvin continued. "We're going to look for civilian footage, nearby businesses, doorbell cameras, anything. If the truth exists, it exists somewhere. But truth can hide, and sometimes the city doesn't want it found. Because the more Calvin dug, the stranger it got. The tip that supposedly led Harlow to Maya's car? Confidential informant, the description of the suspect. Female driver, dark sedan. That was it. No plate, no name, no defining features, just a vague outline large enough to fit 1,000 people. Calvin filed motions. The prosecution fought them. Dana Klein argued, "This is a straightforward possession case." Calvin stood and replied calmly, "Nothing is straightforward when the evidence appears in a trunk without consent and all cameras fail at once." The judge frowned, but didn't rule yet. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ethan shielded Maya like his body could block the narrative, a mic shoved toward her face. "Maya, are you guilty?" Another voice. "Were you selling to students?" Maya flinched like each question was a slap. Ethan yelled, "She's innocent!" But the crowd didn't care, because innocence isn't viral. Suspicion is. Then came the first crack in the story. A woman named Renee Porter contacted Calvin. She owned a small repair shop near the highway. Her message was short. "I saw the stop. I have cameras." Calvin nearly ran to her shop. Renee led him to a back office, pulled up security footage. The angle wasn't perfect, but it showed something the police report didn't mention. Officer Harlow opened Maya's trunk before she was even cuffed, and for a moment, just a moment, his hand moved in a way that made Calvin's chest tighten. His hand went into his own jacket pocket, then down into the trunk. Then he shut it, turned, and cuffed Maya. Calvin replayed it again and again. It wasn't crystal clear, but it was clear enough to raise the deadliest question in American justice. Did the officer place the evidence? Calvin brought the footage to the prosecutor. Dana Klein watched it with a face like stone. Then she said, "This proves nothing." Calvin replied, "It proves your officer lied about the order of events." Dana's voice remained calm. "Order doesn't matter. The substance was in her trunk." Calvin leaned in slightly. "Unless it wasn't until his hand went into his pocket," he said. Dana stared back, and for the first time, The power in the room shifted, not in Calvin's favor, but toward danger. Because when you accuse a system of lying, the system doesn't always correct itself. Sometimes it defends itself harder. Trial day arrived like a storm you can't outrun. Maya sat at the defense table in a borrowed blazer that didn't fit perfectly, but made her feel more like herself. Ethan sat behind her, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were pale. The courtroom was filled, not because the case was famous, because the case was satisfying. People love a downfall. They love to see someone good revealed as bad, because it reassures them that the world makes sense. Dana Klein stood first. She painted Maya as a double life. A counselor by day, she said, but a trafficker in secret. Maya's throat tightened. Calvin stood and spoke quietly. "No one is on trial for being imperfect," he said. "She's on trial for something she didn't do." The jury watched him carefully. Then came Officer Harlow's testimony. He sat tall, swore to tell the truth, and spoke with the confidence of a man who believed the uniform made his words facts. "I observed the vehicle matching the description from our ongoing investigation," he said. "The driver acted nervous. I initiated a stop. During the interaction, I developed probable cause to search the vehicle. I located a bag containing narcotics in the trunk." Dana guided him smoothly. Then Calvin stood. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He walked closer, like he was entering a quiet duel. "Officer Harlow," Calvin said, "you said the defendant acted nervous. Can you describe what she did?" Harlow blinked once. "She avoided eye contact." Calvin nodded. "She was pulled over at night by an armed officer. Is it unusual for civilians to appear nervous?" Harlow hesitated. "No." Calvin turned slightly, letting the sit. "Did you tell her why you pulled her over?" Harlow said. "I did." Calvin lifted an eyebrow. "You did," he repeated. Harlow nodded. Calvin reached down, picked up a document. "Your report does not include a stated reason for the stop," Calvin said. "It begins with, 'Step out of the vehicle.'" Harlow's jaw tightened. "It was implied." Calvin smiled faintly. "Implied," he repeated. "In court, officer, we don't deal in implied. We deal in what happened." A ripple moved through the room. Calvin continued. "Your body camera footage is unavailable," Calvin said. "Why?" Harlow's voice stayed steady. "It malfunctioned." "And the dash cam?" Calvin asked. "Corrupted," Harlow replied. Calvin let silence grow. "Two failures," he said softly. "On the same stop." Dana objected. "Argumentative." The judge allowed it. "Answer." Harlow's eyes flicked to the judge, then back. Calvin nodded and said, "Let's talk about the trunk." Harlow's posture stiffened. Calvin asked, "Did you open the trunk before placing the defendant in handcuffs?" Harlow answered quickly, "No." Calvin nodded as if satisfied. Then he turned to the jury and said, "Permission to publish an exhibit." The judge agreed. Calvin played Renee Porter's footage. The room leaned in. On the grainy screen, Officer Harlow approached the trunk. He opened it. His hand moved toward his jacket, then into the trunk. Harlow's face remained expressionless, but his eyes changed. The jury's eyes widened. Calvin stopped the footage. "Officer Harlow," Calvin said, voice still calm, "you testified you did not open the trunk before cuffing her." Harlow swallowed. Calvin pressed a button and replayed the moment again, slower. The hand, the pocket, the trunk. Calvin paused it at the exact frame. "Is that your hand?" Calvin asked. Harlow's voice tightened. "Yes." Calvin took one step closer. "And is that your jacket pocket?" he asked. Harlow hesitated. Dana objected again, but it was too late. The question was already in the room. Alive. Harlow finally answered. "Yes." Calvin nodded once. "So you opened the trunk before cuffing her," Calvin said. Harlow's voice was forced. "Yes." Calvin turned toward the judge. "Your Honor," he said, "that is perjury." The word hit like a gunshot. Maya's breath stopped. Ethan's hand flew to his mouth. Dana Klein stood, furious. "This is theatrics." Calvin didn't look at her. He looked at Harlow like a man staring at a wall that just cracked. "Officer," Calvin said, "why did your hand go into your pocket before entering her trunk?" Harlow's face hardened. "I don't recall," he said. Calvin's voice remained controlled. "You don't recall," he repeated. "So you don't recall whether you placed an item into her trunk?" Harlow snapped, "No." Calvin tilted his head slightly. "Then let's recall something else," he said. "Your department has a record of evidence handling complaints, and you, Officer Harlow, have been named twice in civil filings for unlawful search." Dana Klein exploded. "Objection! Prejudicial!" The judge sustained it, but the damage was done, because the jury heard it. And Maya saw something happen in real time. The story was changing, not to innocent, not yet, but from guilty for sure to something far more dangerous for the system. Maybe, and in court, maybe, is a weapon. Then Dana Klein tried to reclaim control. She called a forensic analyst who testified that Maya's fingerprints were not found on the bag. Dana spun it anyway. "Gloves," she said. "Wiped clean." Calvin stood and asked one question that made the analyst uncomfortable. "Is it also possible," he said, "that she never touched it because it was never hers?" The analyst hesitated. "That's possible." Dana's jaw tightened. Then came Maya's turn to testify. Calvin didn't want her to. He warned her that prosecutors can twist a saint into a liar with the right tone. But Maya insisted, because she needed the jury to see a person, not a headline. She took the stand, hands clasped, voice shaking but steady enough to be heard. "I work with kids who make mistakes," she said. "I spend my days telling them they're not doomed by one moment." She looked at the jury, eyes wet. "And now, I'm being told one moment defines me and I didn't even do it." Dana cross-examined. "So you expect us to believe a bag of drugs appeared in your trunk by magic?" Dana asked. Maya swallowed. "No," she said. "I expect you to believe something else. That sometimes people with power use it wrong." Dana leaned forward. "Are you accusing Officer Harlow of planting evidence?" Dana asked sharply. Maya's voice trembled, but she didn't look away. "I'm saying the video shows his hand went into his pocket before he went into my trunk," she said. "And I'm saying I've never seen that bag before in my life." Dana's eyes narrowed. "Or you're saying that now because you got caught," Dana said. Maya flinched. Then she said something quiet that made the courtroom go still. "If I was guilty," she said, "why would I carry a casserole dish home from my sister's house and keep my husband's voicemail saved for the morning we were buying our first home?" Her voice cracked. "That's not what guilty looks like," she whispered. "That's what a life looks like. Before someone takes it." The jury looked at her differently then. Not as a concept, as a human being. Closing arguments felt like the final round of a fight nobody asked for. Dana Klein told the jury not to be distracted by blurry footage. She reminded them drugs were in the trunk. She appealed to fear, to public safety, to the idea that letting Maya go would be letting danger walk free. Calvin stood. He didn't shout. He spoke like a man describing something tragic and obvious. "This case is not about whether drugs exist," he said. "It's about whether truth matters." He gestured toward the screen. "A woman is stopped with no reason given, ordered out, cuffed. Her trunk opened before she's even detained. The officer's hand goes into his pocket. Then, suddenly, evidence appears." Calvin looked at the jury. "If you can't trust the process," he said, "then the verdict is not justice. It's a guess." He paused, then said the line that broke something open. "If the system can choose the wrong woman and still win, then none of you are protected. You're just not chosen yet." The jury left. Hours passed like years. Maya sat still, hands clasped, eyes on the door. Ethan whispered prayers he didn't know he still believed in. Officer Harlow sat rigid, jaw clenched, staring straight ahead. Dana Klein looked calm, but her pen tapped an invisible rhythm. Then, the jury returned. The foreperson stood. Maya's heartbeat became a roar. "On the charge of possession with intent," the foreperson said, voice tight, "we find the defendant." A pause. "Not guilty." The room exhaled like it had been underwater. Maya didn't cry at first. She couldn't. Her body had forgotten how to release tension. Then Ethan grabbed her, and the tears finally came, violent, shaking, unstoppable. But the story didn't end there. Because innocence doesn't erase damage. Maya was free, but her job didn't instantly return. Her reputation didn't heal overnight. People who whispered before didn't always apologize after. And Officer Harlow? The department announced an internal review. Administrative leave, they called it. Not investigation, not accountability, just leave. Weeks later, the review concluded with a sentence that made Maya feel sick. Insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. Insufficient. Even with video. Even with perjury under oath. Even with a life almost destroyed. Maya learned something that made her angrier than the arrest itself. The system didn't need to prove it was right. It only needed to avoid proving it was wrong. Nina Harrow ran the story anyway. Public pressure grew, protests sparked, debates exploded. Half the city said he should be fired and charged. The other half said, cops have a hard job. Stop attacking them. People chose sides like sports teams, like Maya's life was a scoreboard. Ethan wanted to sue. Maya hesitated, not because she didn't want justice, but because she finally understood how expensive justice could be. Lawsuits take years. They take money. They take energy. They take your ability to move on. And Maya was tired of being trapped in that moment on the shoulder with lights flashing behind her. But then something happened that forced her to decide. A week after the acquittal, Maya received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. One sentence. Be grateful it ended the way it did. Maya stared at the words until her hands shook. Because that sentence wasn't advice. It was a warning. And warnings like that only come from people who believe they can still reach you. That night, Maya stood in her kitchen staring at the same casserole dish she'd dropped in the car the night everything began. Ethan stood behind her, quiet. Finally, he said, "What do you want to do?" Maya's eyes were glassy, but her voice was steady. "I want them to stop choosing wrong people," she said. Ethan swallowed. "And if they come after us?" he asked. Maya turned to him, and in her expression was something new. Not fear, decision. "Then they'll have to do it in the light," she said, because she'd learned the truth about power. It thrives in darkness. It survives in silence. It dies in daylight. Maya filed the lawsuit. The city argued about her for months. Some called her brave. Some called her ungrateful. Some said she was anti-police. Some said she was a hero. Maya didn't care about labels anymore. She cared about one thing: what happens next time a cop stops the wrong woman. Because next time, the wrong woman might not have a camera nearby. Next time, the wrong woman might not have a husband who won't let the world forget. Next time, the wrong woman might plead guilty just to go home. And that's the real trial, not the one in the courtroom. The one inside a society deciding what it values more: order or truth. So here's the question people still argue about, and you'll feel it in your chest if you're honest. If Officer Harlow planted evidence to protect the city from real criminals, does that make him a monster or a man doing what the system secretly rewards? And if Maya walked free but he walked away untouched, who actually won? Because the scariest part isn't that the wrong woman got stopped. is that the system can stop the wrong woman and keep going like nothing happened. And now that you've heard this story, you can't unhear it. So the next time someone says, if you didn't do anything wrong, you have nothing to fear, ask them one thing. How many innocent people does it take before we admit fear was never the point? And if you were Maya, would you fight or would you just try to survive? Because the truth is, the road doesn't tell you when your life is about to split in two. You only know after, when the lights hit your mirror and someone decides you're the story they need, not the one that's true.